Thank you so much. This is a very long presentation. I will cut it to some slides. This is I don't like the title first, but I will have to negotiate it with the group of researchers that worked on this paper. That is still a very draft paper, so it's included in the booklet. And so if you should have any comments, please feel free to email me. I'm working on this with Francesco Nicoli, Brian Burgun, Marius Busemeyer, Gregorio Buzzelli, and Lucas Hetzer. And basically, I mean, we know that preferences for social policy are likely to be affected by shocks, structural changes. They are multi-dimensional. Actually, so the overall question is which preferences, are affected by which shocks and structural changes. This is, the main motive for our analysis. And actually, we focus on globalization and technological change. Alas, they come up as the two least worried about in our amongst the lot of structural changes, drivers of labor market changes in our current endeavor. But still, we think they are relevant. And so we focus on globalization and tech change as some of these drivers of labor market change. And we know that these factors are often seen in the literature as determinants of the demand for social protection. Well, globalization for sure, we know that, right? The compensation hypothesis that is a central tenet of modern comparative political economy, increasingly so, automation, AI, what we were just discussing. However, in the face of multidimensional preferences over social policies, observational studies that are, currently available tend to fail in considering these two factors simultaneously, which is actually what we want to do with this paper. So we look at globalization and tech change at the same time. And so we fielded a twin-linked survey experiment with 4 questions in mind. So the first is whether citizens actually support or oppose new welfare programs that are tailored to structural labor market shifts, such as globalization and automation in particular. The second is which policy characteristics and which dimensions, technically, are the most important for citizens. The third is actually, yes, after looking at which specific dimensions in welfare state programs are more important. However, we create some policy packages, as it were, that we attribute to, ideal typical political families, such as the neoliberal right. So not the populist right, okay, the neoliberal right, in a sense the old right, the far left and the center left, and we look at support among citizens for these different policy packages. And then we ask, since we have, we had this in mind from the very beginning, whether, there is a difference between being exposed to globalization, being exposed to automation. We were expecting that there would be a large difference. There is none, okay? So this is a long survey with an experimental component that was fielded at the end of 2020, so some time ago. in 8 countries, 4 countries in Europe, let's say in broader Europe, in geographical Europe, including the UK, and Japan and the US. With 2,500 respondents per country and blah, blah, blah. This I funded from my previous position at the Italian Institute for Public Policies. It was carried out by Ipsos. And so basically, I mean, this is quite yellowish, and I don't know whether you can see very well. So there is an experimental component with, the framing experiment. You are treated with randomly a framing regarding, you're exposed to a framing regarding automation or globalization, and you're exposed to the two, but the first, whether you get automation or globalization as the first framing is randomly assigned, and then there is this coin-joint experiment that I will talk about which social policy. Then there is, in this paper, we also use some bits of the observational component that are the bits regarding the concern with shock, so in a sense the subjective exposure to risk, and a measure of the objective exposure to risk via the ubiquitous Autor and Dorn routine task index or the ubiquitous offshoring index. Okay? So I skip. I get to the results. I mean, I'm not done yet, but I'm Italian. I know myself. I've known myself for 53 years almost now. So I prefer to present the results now, so that if I run out of time, I mean, the results have already been covered. So actually, there is, I would say, large support for social policy interventions in all countries vis-à-vis these threats, these shocks, with some variation on some dimensions, but actually the variations are minor, okay? So, overall support. However, like I was saying, very limited effect of the nature of the shock. So people don't care whether it's globalization, whether the shock comes from globalization or automation, and actually there also is a very limited effect of high individual risk exposure or concern. So actually the results you get from people who are either objectively, structurally, or they perceive they are at risk. Vis-à-vis those that are not objectively exposed or that they don't perceive they are at risk, the answer, by and large, doesn't change. Okay? So there are some deep underlying elements that appear to be trumping the nature of shock, individual exposure, also the country. That we haven't explored in this paper. Why? Because this paper is only focused on the non-observational part. It's only focused on the experimental part, except for these concerns. In future, we are still, to submit it. So, but in future years, I would say we will be working on the correlations, the semi-experimental, let's say, part. So the correlation of support for different policy dimensions and packages with individual, demographic, social, political, occupational correlates. Okay, something that is not done here. And more in particular, coming to preferences, people tend to be against public debt creation. Even in Italy, which is kind of a shock, but against public debt creation, and in favor of financing through, some progressive notion, some notion of progressive taxation, In favor of measures targeting workers, then citizenship. So our colleague mentioned the universal basic income. Actually, they prefer to have unemployment benefits, something that is already there in the literature by Zilia Heusermann, by myself in other papers, and against measures targeting businesses, so helping business to face these shocks. Actually, they are in favor of balancing income support interventions and education. So you can basically, if you ask people, I'll show you, would you prefer to spend more on, let's say, income protection and, a bit less, spending more, but a bit less than what you spend on income protection on education, or the other way around, or 50-50? They tend to prefer 50-50. And actually, contrary to our pre-registered hypothesis, because basically all the hypotheses we registered were proved out wrong, which is a bit of a problem for publishing this paper, I guess, but we think about later. They are actually not in favor of investing in STEM education. Okay? They are in favor of investing in vocational training and lifelong learning, not general education, not STEM education in particular. They are in favor of a subnational level of governance, in particular, vis-à-vis supranational or global level of governance. And actually, they are against imposing, this is pretty much, Acemoglu, Restrepo, or something like that. They are against imposing extra costs on business who engage in excessive automation or excessive globalization. They don't want to tax firms. Okay, these are the results. I think I still have 7 minutes. Is that correct? Can you tell me?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Exactly 7 minutes.
Okay, so I skip the literature, which is overstated. Our experiments, how packages are.
Excuse me, can you explain more about the experiment element?
Yes.
I don't quite understand. I think you have to make some people to expose to the globalization and digitalization, and other people make other people not to expose to those kind of risks.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make those experimentations?
So the experiment is actually, you don't have a baseline, if this is what you mean. Basically, this is the framing of the two scenarios. There is a framing that introduces the conjoint experiment. So basically, you read, we would like you to think about a new public initiative on work and, let's say, automation to help citizens prepare for or deal with rapid technological change, including the automation of production processes, the rise of robotics and artificial intelligence. This public initiative being discussed can combine different policy measures. Some measures provide different direct income support, blah, 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 blah. And then you are shown, you have a video, and you are confronted, as it were, with two policy packages, one on the left, one on the right, and these policy packages combine levels pertaining to several dimensions of a policy package. One dimension is how large the program is, 0.35% of GDP or 0.7% of GDP. The second dimension is, which are, 0.7%, how much advanced countries spend on unemployment benefits, 0.35, roughly half of. Second dimension is taxation. No change. You will have to cut, other items in public expenditure to fund this, or increasing taxes for everyone, or increasing taxes only for the rich, or increasing public debt. Third dimension is this distribution I was mentioning between income and education support. And then what kind of educational support is provided: higher education, STEM, higher education but only STEM, vocational training, lifelong learning. Type of income support: workers or all citizens. So, generally speaking, if you wish, unemployment benefits and universal basic income. Support for firms to keep them in the market through subsidizing payments. Kurzarbeit, right? Furlough schemes or cassa integrazione, what is called short-time work, goes in that direction. And, this kind of Minsky-Randall-Ray policy of actually supporting unemployed through public-funded extra jobs. And I'm almost done with my time. So level of governance and those additional regulatory measures that I was mentioning. So everybody is exposed to a series of, randomly combined packages, and they have to choose one of the two and to rate each of the two on a Likert scale, okay? And this is done when you're primed with automation or when you're primed with globalization, okay? It's
So we have plenty of time for the general discussion. And please question or comment because we have to proceed our presentation first.
Okay, I'll get back to this, but this is a survey, what is called a survey experiment. If you have in mind a randomized trial experiment, that's a different thing, okay? I often discuss this with economists who are used to, but this is called the survey experiment in the literature, but we can discuss it afterwards. And I will get to the results, although I've already told you about that. Do I still have a couple of minutes? Yes, no?
Okay. You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. You shouldn't tell me. Okay. These are our theoretical expectations that lead to our experimental expectations, or hypotheses in common parlance. But I will skip this, and this is what I just mentioned in terms of choice and support. And here you have the share of packages, first results, that are rejected or accepted. And actually you see that, generally speaking, packages that are approved of by the respondents, the density is higher than the one of those that are against. But actually the more meaningful graph regarding this is, here you have the share of individuals who reject a certain number of packages over the 12 they have seen, because something I didn't mention is that each individual see 6 packages for automation and 6 packages for, 6 combinations for automation and 6 for globalization. And actually, like I was saying before, actually, saying how much you like each of them on a Likert scale, you say whether you accept them or reject them. And actually, generally speaking, in the literature on survey experiments, you consider, basically rejected those that let's focus on 0 to 8, okay, that are basically those respondents that do not reject more than 4 packages, okay? And as you see, the vast majority of respondents actually accept at least 5 or plus packages. So, the experiment is meaningful, right? Okay. Main experimental results, I don't know whether you are able to see much, but we had expectations regarding, The larger, the better. And then in particular, the larger, the better for those who are more exposed. Neither of these is true. So, generally speaking, respondents, don't care about the size of the package. Second dimension, you see how people tend to prefer progressive taxation and tend to dislike increasing government debts. Third dimension, actually, people prefer a 50-50 allocation. Fourth dimension, like I was saying, we had, specific hypotheses. So basically, people tend to prefer investment in STEM, and actually people who are more at risk, are even more supportive of investment in STEM. You don't see the second here, but the latter here. But as for the former, so population in general, you see that this hypothesis is disconfirmed because actually people don't like investment in STEM. And regarding basically policy, social policy preferences, what you see is that people tend to prefer, let's say, unemployment benefits, but in particular they are strongly opposed to subsidies to firms. Then regarding level of governance, they definitely prefer the national level. And they don't like, let's say, sales taxes on firms that engage in excessive automation or globalization. I'm using Acemoglu's terms, of course. Now, packages. We imagined a modern monetary theory package, okay, on the left, where it should stand, probably, a social democratic package in the middle, and a neoliberal package on the right. We will probably add another, let's say, social, liberal or something like that package, and for sure a populist, right-wing populist package. However, you see, how they differ. You can read. I don't have to go through them. Basically, the differences are written there. All of them, however, involve a national level of governance. You see how the social democratic package is the one that is liked the best. So it is, in policy terms, a kind of a middle ground. And the social democratic package is, in a sense, more of the same, more of what we currently have in terms of policy responses to automation and globalization. So nothing new. And here you see the distribution. There is some variation across countries, but I can comment upon that in the Q&A later on. Coming to, the framing objective and subjective exposure, I will not comment upon the first panel, but you see how actually we have some weird results regarding the use of routine task index. That is, however, highly contested in the literature. So those that are more at risk, according to the routine task index, are, in a sense, least in favor of policy responses, which is kind of weird. Whereas this does not occur with Blinder's assurability index. And the right kind of relation you see with concerns, actually. So it's just the RTI. However, the point is that there is not much difference between, being exposed to automation or globalization, no difference. And also, being exposed to high risks vis-a-vis low risks, either of globalization or of automation, doesn't change much, and certainly not as much as we would have expected. So these are the results that I will read again. There is support for social policy intervention in all countries. However, very limited effects of nature, globalization vis-à-vis automation, and/or intensity of the shock. And there is the preference for an MOR social democratic package, which is basically incremental and path dependent on what we currently have. Thank you so much.